Hey everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Releasing the Real You show, where we have chats with lots of different experts in their field, all related to health, weight loss, well-being, and anything surrounding it. If you haven't yet listened to the previous shows, go back and listen, subscribe, and then you will also get notification when the next episodes will be out as well. So I'm really excited today because today we have Caroline Purvey with me, and she's a woman with a mission and a vision as well. She is an award-winning transformational leader and #1 best-selling author of Feel It to Heal It, which is available on our website or on Amazon or all the different bookshops. It's also, I think, if I'm correct, on audiobooks as well. She is the founder of a system or a way of, we'll talk about that in a minute, of helping people that is called TRE or TRE UK, which is Total Release Experience Program. Her passion is to empower those ready for deeper healing to discover the power of their own body, the gateway to freedom from physical, mental, and emotional pain. So a warm welcome, Caroline. It's great to have you here.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here, Anne. Thank you for the invitation.
You're more than welcome. So tell me a little bit about what exactly you do, because, you know, when I personally hear or heard in the past the word healing, I thought about a bit weird stuff. For me, healing was going to the doctors, get a pill, and sort myself out. So tell me a little bit more about what you do.
Well, you know, it's always a conundrum, because when something's new to one's thinking, I was only talking to somebody the other day who said, I get what you do works, because I've heard many amazing stories, but what I don't get or believe in my head is that I can do it, not somebody else. And therein lies the key. So we at TRE UK, the company, teach the Total Release Experience Program, which actually empowers whoever wants to undertake a deeper level of healing. In fact, the deepest level of healing that we can get to, and I'll come to that in a moment. But by getting to that deepest level, everybody's doing and experience some wonderful practices, whether that comes in the form of talking, in the form of touch, in the form of medication. But then there comes a point where they're ready. Actually, they start to understand there's something else going on, that, you know, whatever I do, it's been great, but it's not hitting the button for me. And hitting that button is getting to the real root cause of what gets stored in our body's muscle memory. And on the front cover of my book, there is an image of a muscle, and it is all to do with that muscle in the body. So we empower those ready for that level of healing to understand that actually they're the ones with the key. They're the ones that can activate their body's own ability to release the tension that's stored in their body, that comes from every stressful, overwhelming, traumatic experience. It happens to us all from the day we're born, the startle response, and everything else that we've ever gone through. Fascinating. It's not a therapy. It's a tool that we all have inside, but we've all forgotten.
Okay, so it's all, like, obviously, as you said, as we live, we all, you know, accumulate stresses from all kinds of places, all kinds of experiences, all kinds of, you know, part of life, really.
Absolutely.
And then we have the ability to release those stresses so that we can be the best version of ourselves, really.
Absolutely.
And how do, with your system or your program, how does that work? You mentioned a muscle.
Yes.
How do we do it? Like, obviously, don't tell us all the secrets, but you know, what are we supposed to do to make it happen?
What are we supposed to do? That's a very good question. Actually, not a lot.
Okay.
And let me tell you why. Let me just explain first. Look, many people don't know this muscle, the psoas muscle.
Yeah.
And it's called the hidden secret for good reason, because it sits under the diaphragm, behind all the organs, down to the top of the legs. And we have to understand that muscle first, or we don't get that all this stuff is stored in our body. If you've ever been in a car or you've been in an aeroplane and it's like, whoa, here comes a turbulence. And what do? That's it.
You hold onto your seat really firmly.
And we pull in.
Yeah.
And that muscle is like a protective cloak. It takes us into tonic freeze. That moment of what's next. Adrenaline, cortisol pumps into the body, fight, flight. Let's get through that one. Whew, now it's all over. But actually, it's not all over until we've released the tension and the adrenaline and cortisol from that episode. Now, children, when they go through crises, they can't run, they can't fight. So what do? They remain in freeze. And we've all gone through that. We've all encountered falls, injuries, accidents. We've all encountered poor relationships with siblings or kids at school and all of that stuff. We've all had pressure of exams and, you know, parents, all sorts of encounters as a child. And where's it all gone? Well, we talk very simple language. We can switch that psoas. We're all stress buckets and we fill the bucket with our history. And unless we've released that history at the time of the event, just like animals do, it's an animal practice. And if we think, have you seen a dog shake?
Yeah.
When we see dogs shaking, and most responses I get is, well, the dog's nervous, but actually it isn't. It's making sure that it doesn't hold the tension from whatever it's experiencing, whether that's going to the vet or, you know, somebody screaming and shouting in the background, fireworks going off, whatever it is, or traveling. You know, all animals do the same, particularly animals in the wild. It's their survival kit. Mm-hmm. And it's a reptilian brain practice. So let me explain that mammalian brain is activities that I call it our survival brain, responsible for our breathing and our heart. Most don't know much about those systems unless they start to go wrong. And then we become incapacitated. We've got breathing problems, panic attacks, you know, asthma, and heart conditions. And when they go wrong, we're incapacitated. And bottom line is game over. Mm-hmm. That's it. Because without those two systems, we don't live. And the third missing piece of the jigsaw, which is imagine your bucket's filling and it's getting heavier and heavier, we just keep spiraling down. It's like being on a sinking ship. And the more that goes in that bucket, then the quicker the spiral. How do we know when our bucket's filling? Well, we get back, hip, neck, shoulder pain. We might have headaches, can't sleep, anxiety, panic attacks, mood swings. Relationships start to break down, head fog, lack of clarity, focus. You know, I've counted 99 different physical, mental, emotional states that have come from a full bucket. Yep. At worst, blood pressure rises, heart attack, stroke, cancer, suicide. And I really detest that word. Who wants to take their own life? Nobody. But that's the worst case scenario when there's no hope, bucket's been overfilled, and it's that split second irrational head fog decision. And, you know, when we learn to turn on the tap, so thoughtfully activate the psoas, and it's honestly like breathing and heart is a very, very simple experience to engage with. But it is the most empowering and powerful thing that our body can do. And that is kind of the challenge. I could get a 10-year-old to show you how to unlock your psoas and activate it to start releasing that tension. But it's the power of realigning, rebalancing your nervous system. It's absolutely fascinating. And what I love is that it doesn't matter how many hundreds or thousands of people do the same practice, they all have a different experience, because everybody is unique, special, and have their own history.
Yes, for sure. So what led you to find or put that system together? Because I've seen most people that work in the health and well-being space do it because something happened at some point in their own life. And so they were looking for their own solution. So then they found a solution and then started helping people. That's generally what happens. But what happened to you? Why?
Well, that's interesting. That wasn't the case with me at all.
Okay.
I've always been what I would call in my life a tough bucket. I'm a pick yourself up, dust yourself off, crack on kind of person. I understood more and more. I changed careers. Everything I've done has led me to where I am, from working with youth to being in business to going into degrees later in my life and then becoming a teacher, teaching young people business. So they're all kind of connected. But when I'd finished 3 degrees, it's like I want to do something else. But when I started my teaching job, I was introduced to yoga. Didn't even know what it was. And I was very fortunate. I had a South African teacher, very kind of robust and direct, and I loved that. And every time I left a class, I stopped competing and started to just focus on what she was teaching and listening to my body. And I fell in love with yoga, and I started training in that. When I finished my degrees, I wanted to do something else because I felt I was going brain dead. So I went into reflexology, head massage, and yoga.
Okay.
And was learning all 3 at the same time, learning to teach. And I found it amazing to actually qualify in something and be able to do something with your hands. And so I got more and more interested in the human body. The yoga I loved, and although I felt fit and healthy, and it was another dimension. So following on from that, it was one of my yoga students some years later that said to me, "Have you heard of this?" Cut a long story short, no, I hadn't. Looked online, made a phone call, and discovered that there was a training in South Africa which was happening at a time that I needed to be in South Africa, and was procrastinating because it was for the birth of my daughter's first baby, and birth like death comes when it's ready. And I hadn't bought tickets, and we were getting closer. And then I realized the reason why was because I was meant to be somewhere at that time. And there I was, arrived on Monday, baby came Wednesday, Friday, I'm in a venue. Now get this, South Africa's a big place. And when I was told about the venue, given the size of South Africa, I said, I know that venue. It's 5 minutes from where my daughter lives.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I truly believe that this found me. And I was in that venue with 99 other people from around the world. And I just stood up and said, I'm going back to make this happen in the UK. And been my vision and mission since. It coincided with the opening of my dream yoga studio, because I'd come out of my teaching job and that's what I wanted to pursue. I'd already got a good following. I've got over 20 years of experience, well, now 30 years this year. And it just seemed a good match. And I've worked with it since. But I do my own practice and my bucket's well and truly empty. Whatever's gone on in my past, completely healed from that, but resilient. And we all need resilience. So it doesn't matter what people throw at me. It's like, brush it off.
Is it something that we, should be practicing on a daily basis? Because obviously stresses come and go every day from all kinds of places. So if once we know the technique, it's something that we can do every day for a few minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, just to rebalance ourselves at the end of the day? Or how does that work once you get to the stage where you just released everything that's inside?
Right. Well, people's journey, people often say to me, how long will it take me to empty my bucket?
Yeah.
Well, it's how long's a piece of string? Okay, how much history have you got in there and how many years have you been carrying it around? And it's not a chronological practice. That's the incredible thing. The body is so intelligent. It's kind of, imagine all these weaves and wefts of threads. And it's like, well, I've got to get that bit out first before I can get to that bit. You're not ready. It's extraordinary. People with very complex PTSD think the worst case is going to come out immediately.
Yeah.
Actually, I've seen the body saying, well, you know what? You're not quite ready for that yet. I've got to build you up. So we're just going to deal with this and you're going to feel amazing. And then we're going to go a bit deeper. And then we're going to go a bit deeper. It's fascinating.
It is. I see that a lot as well with my clients who, or even for me personally, if someone had said to me, if you want to get results, you need to cut out all the sugar. I wasn't ready for it, but I was ready for that small step that bit by bit led to me to, be able to say no to sugar. But, once in a while, obviously, like anyone else, I still have, but I don't have that addiction or that dependency anymore on it or from it. So, but if someone would have said to me, oh, you can't have any sugar, it was like, you must be joking. Like, that's way beyond me.
Yeah. But, because of the power of the practice, it's not just the releasing session, which through our program, we build up 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes max. So then it becomes a self-regulating program. But regularity is the key, once a week. And the extraordinary thing is, when people have had their first release, they feel whatever they feel. And it's different for everyone. Their experience is different. But then it's the next day. Because we say to people, imagine your body's a snow globe, a big snow globe. And we're all energy beings, plenty of science on that one. And what we've done is we've shaken up that big snow globe. Tension's gone. And so the nervous system, which is activated in this practice, is like, wow, hang on a minute. I'm not as tight. I'm not as restricted. So I can start to rebalance. But that process doesn't happen in 5 minutes. 5 days later, people are still experiencing that realigning, that rebalancing from that session. So once a week is perfect. We don't need to create rituals every day to get through the day. There's grounding techniques that we get from, just breathing, and breath is our most powerful tool. And so once a week, and then when people get through the program and they say, okay, right, now I get what this is all about, then they can self-regulate. They might want to do it twice a week. Certainly not every day, because if you imagine shaking up a snow globe and it's still settling and you're shaking it up again and again and again, what you're doing is pulling thread. Well, hang on a minute. Can I just draw breath from that one?
Yeah, fair enough. So actually, it is something that's manageable for everyone. That is, obviously, we're all busy to do that once a week, twice a week, but it's not something that needs to be done every day, which is great.
And you're emptying the bucket at the same time as building the resilience and getting the benefits. And that's the joy. The book is called Feel It to Heal It, because we have to. What we've stored in our bucket are blocked feelings, emotions, pain, tension, and memories. And what we do is we discover our truth. Why is it I'm like I am as an adult? Why have I got those limiting beliefs? Why can't I communicate in the way I really want to? Because it was lost in childhood. It might have been one thing that somebody said when you were a child that got locked in there. And so the limiting beliefs, you know, around all sorts, the low self-esteem, and then it is absolutely wonderful. And when I say transform, people do transform. I very quickly.
Definitely see that, you know, lots of my clients with weight issues, it's something coming that's quite often someone said something when they were a child, and that's just in there. And they might not even realize it, but when you get there, it's like, oh my God, really? Am I really holding on to something that someone in year 4 said to me? It's quite interesting, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that's fantastic, you know, what your clients are getting. But then when we're ready for that deeper level, we get it out of the muscle memory. And I have many a time been bold enough to say to people, you know, it's still in your muscle memory, right? Might not be in your headspace anymore, and you can deal with that, but it's still in the body's muscle memory. So when you're ready for that deeper level, and they've been shocked at what they thought had gone, but actually there was that last bit to go. But unfortunately, it's that last bit that triggers the aging process, because it manifests, and we don't associate it with it. Manifests as back, hip, neck, shoulder pain. You know, when systems in the body start to go wrong, from urinary, from breathing, from circulatory, it's like, oh well, it's age,
tension, that
and it's not age. It's not age. We can release that tension and start to feel taller, to feel more energized, to feel looser, to feel freer in our physical body, and much, much clearer in our headspace. And often people don't know the problem that causes the problem. And that can be something as far back as birth or in the mother's womb.
That's very, very interesting and very true as well. Quite often it's just so hard to pinpoint where it's coming from. So with your technique, will people know what caused it, or it just goes and you actually want to realize what happened that caused all the stuff that you're struggling with?
Well, you know, that is the wonderful thing about this. Everybody has a different experience because everybody's got different history. But I have a client that's said to me, so for example, wow, I saw myself in my mother's arms. I was 6 months old. I felt her rejection. Now you know, isn't that wonderful? Now you know the truth. It was never your fault. You were a baby. Now think about, well, what filled your mum's bucket? Was she perhaps raped? Did the dad turn around and say, I want nothing to do with this, I'm off, and left her holding the baby? So there's always a reason behind the reason, and you get into the truth. Now you can accept the truth, forgive if there's forgiveness. I've got so many wonderful stories around that whole thing about going deeper into the bucket. Memories that surface about the detail of what happened. Only recently working with a lady who was date raped, I guess it was, you know, drugged. And she only recently started releasing, but already she's hearing the voices of those that are guilty. She's beginning to associate with who caused all this grief in her body and her life, which led her to go into her shell, which led her to stop socializing, which led her to overeating and everything else.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. So what's your biggest success so far that you would say that is, you know, my highlight so far? Obviously, there's lots more to come of you know, working with your program and your system.
Well, you know, every morning when I wake up and I see another journal pop in, because we do monitor everything that when our clients are going through the program, and the stories that people have shared over the years, it's like, I don't know which one do you pick, because it's another miracle. And you know what's the greatest thing? I don't know, there's so many, but I am going to draw on my prison experience, because I always say, get me into prison full of angry children. And I remember the day walking into that prison. It took me 2 years, but the universe provided the contacts that got eventually, and it was a proud moment, yes. And Daniel, my son that works with me, we're walking down the path to the prison gates, and he said, oh, I'm really feeling a bit nervous. And I said, I'm feeling so excited. And the experiences in there were incredible. We've learned a lot of wisdom come from in there, but I wasn't wrong. It is full of angry children. When a man sits up and says, wow, if I'd have known this when I was 8, I wouldn't be here now. But one of those inmates there was only a young man in his very early 30s, late 20s at the time, maybe. And he was almost on his last legs from drug addiction, had nothing to live for. And I remember in his first session, the tears. What have I got to live for? And I said, you've got a sister out there. Well, you know, cut a long story short, that young man wrote me his story. And his story is in the book. And when the publisher said to me, gosh, we're going through the prison story, we got tears in our eyes. And there was a young man who had his dream in the palm of his hands, at 11 years of age, invited to join the football academy. And then his mother was found dead from alcohol poisoning. And his life turned upside down, and the rest is history. He ended up in prison. I had that man working in our garden this summer on a project we were doing. And the guy in charge of the project, I brought him in to give him a kickstart and give him some income to help labouring. He said, I read your book. He said, I read Marcus's story. And I said, I didn't say anything. I said, but I guess you put 2 and 2 together. And he said, but he's a really nice guy. And I said, and the reason he's here is because he's emptied his bucket. He's no longer craving drugs, because he's released from his body the cause of all the pain that led him to that. And that, I have to say, is probably something that I'm really proud of, that saw that through. And he got it, believed in it, worked it. And as he says, it saved his life.
That's amazing. That is, you know, when you hear stories like that, you're just like, well, that's incredible. And probably sometimes I'd say for people who don't have such a big backstory, it might, as you said at the beginning, I understand why it would work for them, but would it work for me? So, you know, that's that kind of, we're going a little bit, you know, full circle there.
Yeah,
is, you know, it definitely can work for everyone. You don't have to have that massive backstory to be able to release everything that, you know, you're holding and that's holding you back. So no matter how big or how small your issues are, you can still achieve the results that you want to achieve.
Oh, absolutely. Look, and you know, everybody's got a story. Some of that story might be blocked.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter what it is, whether one's dealing with overwhelm at work. Suddenly the world we're living in is putting huge pressure on them.
Mm-hmm.
And just to show how we might ignore what's in our bucket, a gentleman got in touch. He was so panicked by the current state of the war.
Yep.
And how will I protect my children? He couldn't even talk on the phone. He had to come over to see me. And when I said to him, you know, he hadn't eaten for 5 days. It was that bad. He wasn't sleeping. He'd got a good job, traveling every day to his work. And cut a long story short, I said to him, okay, you know what? This isn't it. This is the tip of the iceberg. What else has happened? What else is in your bucket? Well, he never got over witnessing his sister being severely beaten up.
Yeah. And war and that just connects.
Yeah.
Easily.
And then it comes out in conversation. I was bullied at school. I felt a complete wimp every day. And I said to him, well, how old were you? 6. So there we go. He had not associated any of that, because what do? We just pick ourselves up. We just carry on, don't we?
Well, that's what we're told to do. Just get on with it.
Just get on with it. And it's interesting, isn't it? Often one says, oh, go and shake it off.
Yep.
If only they knew that that's exactly what we have to do.
Yeah.
But instead of that, as human beings, we've suppressed it. And so be it. There has to be a way that you can activate and trigger your body to release. Whereas normally it would happen spontaneously, but we've suppressed it because we don't understand it.
Yep.
And therein lies the key. And I always remember one lady saying, do you know what? It doesn't matter how good you feel, you don't know how much better you can feel.
That is so powerful. Oh my God. That is something that I say to all my clients and all my friends as well, is, you know, you might feel you feel good, but there's always a level up that you can go to, even more than one level up, but, you know, start by one level at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And that's the joy. It's innate in every human being. We all have that muscle. And from the day we're born, that's when we start to draw that tension in, whether we notice it or not, but it catches up eventually.
So if, obviously you wrote the book, Feel It to Heal It. If someone buys the book, do they have all the techniques and all the tools to do your... No, you don't.
No, honestly, Anne, when I read what people say they're experiencing after their first 15-minute release, for example, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I've often said to Daniel, yeah, come and read this. Look what this woman's gone through. There isn't a doctor in the land that would have that influence of that body healing like it's healed itself.
So the book is more about explaining why your system really works and how it works, so that people that might be a little bit skeptical.
Yeah, and the stories. It's my journey. How did I get into it? What gives me the right to write that book?
Yeah.
And you know, you might be asking me, how long did it take me to write that book? And I've got 2 answers to that.
Yeah.
It took me 9 years to get all the information, the experience, the data, and 5 months to write it from start to production.
Yeah. That's very, very interesting. Well, it's true that, you know, obviously you have to accumulate the stories, the experiences, the knowledge, the you know, everything together for... It's a bit like me as well. You know, I wrote my book 10 years after I started working with my clients, and it actually didn't take me that long to write it, but I had all the information, the backstories and everything, so that I could just slot them in where it needed to be. So
yeah, but I mean, it's very hard to select the stories because there's so many of them, but they're not mine to sit on. People need to know that actually we've got another choice.
Yeah, totally. Totally agree with that. That's a very good point. We do have another choice. We don't have to stay how we are. So what would be your top 3 tips to anyone listening today that they can go and implement straight away?
Well, you want to know more. If you want to know more, on my website, there's a free download of a poem. It's called Sam's Story, because it's very difficult to explain. I can tell everything, I can guide, I can educate, but I cannot tell you what your experience is going to be. But that poem kind of sums up where it all goes. And that's free to anyone that wants it.
Okay.
And of course, there's a book and the audio. You see them on the website, that one can find out more, read more. One can get in touch. We can have a Zoom meet, like we're face to face talking to each other, wherever they are in the world, to say, well, how can this help me? How can we help enhance the work that you do with your clients? How can we help enhance the physical work somebody might be doing with somebody? How can we enhance doing nutritional work? You know, it doesn't matter what it is, coaching, talk therapy. Maybe there's done enough talking. Discover more. And let's see if we're a good fit.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the program on the website. But in the interim, you know, whatever one's going through, if there are those moments of panic, of anxiety, of uncertainty, connect with the breath, because our breath is the most powerful tool we have.
That is so, so true. I mean, yes, even in my book, I talk about breathing, because in the stress part, it's one of those things that we can all do. It doesn't take much time. We can do it anywhere. And, just by taking a few deep breaths, you already feel that slightly different.
I mean, there are breathing techniques, and some of your listeners might be familiar with left nostril breathing. Now, left nostril breathing is our rest and digest. It calms us down. Or even bringing hand to heart, hand to abdomen, sitting grounded and breathing deep. We have to work on our breath. It's not just shallow. You know, as a yoga teacher, when people first come and I see them breathing, it's like they've got no idea. And so actually spending time working on breath until you're ready to do something else, gets you in the moment, gets you present, puts all the past and the future miles away, so that we can just focus on where we are right here, right now. And that's important. Yep,
100%. So if someone wants to get in touch with you, obviously all the details will be in the description of this show. But obviously there's your website. Are you on any?
We have the website, treuk.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Caroline Purvey, Instagram, Facebook. I mean, there's a lot of social media. Some work better, different to others. But on all of those platforms, there's contact details. And I can be emailed on caroline@treuk.com, or message platforms through any of those social medias. It's costs nothing to ask.
Yeah, I'm a big believer, and I was very reluctant in the past, but only because of, the industry I was in, and being a female in a very male oriented industry, the IT industry. Asking for help was something that I really struggled with, but there's just no shame to it. We all need help. We're not superwoman, superman, or superhuman. We not good at everything. We absolutely need help in, the things that we are actually not good at, and it's perfectly fine to ask for help and reach out. So.
And recently I've been working with a gynecologist, got her own bucket full, And she said to me, there's a lady I'm treating. And I said, I bet the majority of your patients come to you because of trauma, whether that's physical abuse or birth trauma. And she said one case in particular keeps coming back, but there's absolutely nothing wrong. But I said, probe enough, there's deep trauma. She said, well, I do know of some. And I said, and that is what's causing the problem. People, ladies that have had birth trauma that haven't even wanted to go near their husband afterwards have ended up recovering from the trauma, having a great relationship with their partner and bringing babies into the world. And those stories are, you know, I just love them.
Yeah, I bet.
Happy ending. And the other one recently is a consultant of all the things. IBS and gut problems are one of the biggest things that occur when we've gone through stress and trauma.
Yep.
And he himself is just loving the practice for himself. We're all human. Doesn't matter what anyone does, from the President of America to, you know, the celebrities to individuals that, you know, are homeless. They've all got a body that needs to be free of tension.
Oh, we all do, for sure. I mean, you know, life is stressful.
More so, yeah.
We have lots going on. There's lots of pressures. So definitely, absolutely need to look after ourselves and make sure that, you know, we are releasing that pressure that otherwise will lead to lots of health issues, emotional issues, etc. So
yeah,
fantastic. Well, thank you very, very much. That was a great chat. So thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
I'm looking forward to seeing you all next month with the next show. But remember, all the details of how to get in touch are below and in the comments. And if you want to be notified of the next episode, which I'm sure you do want, click on subscribe and see you next month. Bye for now.
Bye.